You're listening to On the Couch with Dr. Michelle, right here on LA Talk Radio.
And that is the truth. Welcome, everyone, as you always are here on the couch. I'm Dr. Michelle Cohen. And today you're going to learn a lot about nourishing yourself. What? We talking about food? Yes. Are we talking about spiritually? Yes. We're talking about so many different holistic ways of taking care of you and your body and this beautiful framework that you have. And you don't have to look like all of the people who post on social media, the beautiful, fit, skinny. It's all cultural. It's all how we've learned how to eat. It's all how we nourish ourselves emotionally. And we're going to be talking about those things today. You know, in a world that just seems so obsessed with fad diets and quick fixes. I mean, that's all I see. I see some of these models on, Instagram, and it's like, it's really easy to lose sight of truly what nourishes our soul. So if you're tired of those diets, which we all are, right? Those fad diets, revolutionary approach on counting calories and restricting food, and you just feel like you're trapped. And then we go back to our old habits again. But today, my special guest is going to talk about how we can prevent going back into those bad habits. We're talking about her latest book, which I'll introduce in just a bit. And what you're going to learn is about a holistic journey towards intentional eating and lasting transformation. And my special guest today, we'll bring her up, Sandy Robinson. Hello, my dear.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this
Oh,
discussion.
oh, me too. I loved your book.
Thank
It was
you.
the best diet book I've ever read. So let me give
Thank
you
you.
the proper introduction here. Um, because you have, oh man, you've been doing this for so long and you've helped so many people. So for the past 25 years, Sandy Robertson has been a notable corporate and healthcare system manager, leader, and educator of wellness and obesity programs. And really, she's been in the forefront of integrative, complementary, and mind body approaches to behavior change. So, by the way, just some of the accolades about Sandy today, besides her being an amazing author, she's a registered nurse, holds a Master of Science in Nursing, an advanced practice and public health nurse certification. And not only that, but Sandy's a certified medical intuitive. That's really important. We'll be talking about that as well. And certified healing touch practitioner. This is the book we will be talking about today. Why am I eating this? Is this is this the nourishment I need? I don't know. After I read this, Sandy, I went, "Oh yeah, this is my kind of book." Because it's lovely and easy to understand. And also, I love the psychological stuff that you put into it about nourishing this and this, our hearts, taking care of ourselves. So, thank you for
Thank you.
being such a great guest today. Super to have you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate the introduction. And this book is really the summary of my life's work. As you said, I've worked for many, many years. I'll say many years, many
Yeah,
decades
yeah,
in corporate wellness, corporate health, the hospital setting, counseling, doing group nutrition seminars, weight loss prevention, again,
amazing.
hospital programs. And so this is really the combination of everything I've heard from
Yeah,
thousands of
right.
clients. And also, I've been fortunate along the way to take training at Harvard Mind Body Institute and learn about
Amazing.
the mind body connection and many other integrative and holistic approaches. And there's
Yeah.
so much wisdom
Ah,
out there. And just as you said, I'm really was tired of all the diet books saying this is the answer.
right.
Because as a holistic nurse, and I know you know this as a psychologist, there's no one right answer for everyone. It's a
Right.
personalized journey.
It sure
It's a
is. That makes
personalized journey for
it
every human
is.
being.
It is. And as I said in the beginning, it's really difficult and problematic for many of us because all we see on social media are these super buff, super skinny men and women and this super weightlifters. You have to be like this, you have to look like this. No, everybody's different. We have our own cultural heritage and DNA, and we all have to take that into consideration as well, right, Sandy?
Absolutely. And in terms of behavior change, as you're saying, people look to what's trending on social media or on
Yeah.
magazines or what their friends are doing. And a noted cardiologist who was a teacher that I first heard many years ago, Dr. Steve Sinatra, MD,
Right,
wrote a
right.
book on heartbreak and heart disease.
Oh,
And
mm,
he said there's a
wow.
doorway into healing for every human being. And for everyone, it's a
Wow.
different doorway. And I've quoted him and used that ever since because I love that, thinking of the circle of
Yes.
health or wheel of health. I have
Right,
one
right.
example in my book, but there are many through the cultures. And
Yeah.
so there's a doorway into healing, whether it's
Yes.
nutrition or illness or pain or depression. And there's a different doorway into weight loss for everyone, or looking at how we're eating and nourishing ourselves in
Right?
different ways. It's a different doorway. So I just love to offer that to people too.
Huh. It is. That's neat. That's really neat. I think a lot of people are into it today, and I got some positive reactions from people when I put this out on social media about what we're going to be talking about. Because everybody, even if they don't want to lose weight per se or get super, buff or whatever, it's something about nourishing our brains and the good food that rebuilds cells and keeps our telomeres long and all those wonderful things. So we're
Beautiful.
going to be talking
Beautiful.
about that as well. Um, and I know about your inspiration. You explained all of the work you have done with people, and we can touch a little bit on some of those patients and their issues who you've worked with. But I'm always interested in my guests and the other things behind what inspired them to write things. Did you have any personal issues going on with your eating habits or
I-
weight loss or?
Yes, I did. And I touch on this in my book because I feel it's important not only to be honest, but for people to understand I was fat and heavy as a child going
Hmm.
into junior high school. People called me fatso and
Oh,
tubs and said I
oh,
had heavy
sorry.
thighs. I was a lifeguard on the beach, and I remember someone said,
Oh,
you have heavy thighs. And it was like, oh, because I was very athletic. Um,
right, right.
and I also describe in the book growing up, I grew up as an only child in our house, and my grandmother lived with us, maternal
Ah,
grandmother,
sure.
from wonderful German roots, but loved heavy food. Doesn't all have to be heavy,
Right,
but in our home,
right.
that was the trend. And large portions, and also eat everything on your plate. And there was a lot of disharmony in the
Mhm,
home. My father
sure.
and grandmother did not get along.
Oh,
And he was an alternate to the Olympics, actually, for track and field when he was much
oh,
younger.
wow. My
Very
goodness.
disciplined eater, could say, no, thank you, I'm full, stop. No, I don't care for dessert. And then my mother and grandmother was the other extreme. So it was very
Right.
interesting that I grew up with these exhibit A and exhibit B
It is,
for
really.
how to eat.
Right.
Fortunately, I would say well, they both molded me. To be honest, I know that I used food to self soothe as a
Sure,
child,
sure.
to comfort myself. Plus, I was no other siblings in the home.
Sure.
And sometimes it was boredom or distraction or entertainment. And then,
Right.
fortunately, going into junior high and high school, I thinned out and very
Oh,
athletic, and that
good.
was okay. But honestly, in college, studying nursing, that was stressful. So my weight, especially in the younger 20s and 30s, went up and down
Mhm.
a lot.
Yeah,
And I think getting into the corporate wellness field
yes.
was wonderful because they say you teach what you need to learn or practice yourself.
Is that
So
true?
it was a
Right.
constant reminder, and so that has helped me maintain
Yeah,
a lower weight and be healthy. But my
yeah.
roots have definitely played into what I want to offer in
Boy.
this book.
Yes, and I think a lot of our roots are in that as well. I similarly, I grew up in a home where my mom was a wonderful cook. I mean, amazing, and she'd cook things from scratch, and so they taste a lot better. And it was always fill up your plate. This is healthy, and that was the whole thing. I remember having tummy aches a lot, after meals and not saying much because I was supposed to eat the whole thing on the plate. So, that wasn't good either. But same thing as you in a way, but it just is. It's like that. So you've had some stuff and you learned it, of course, in nursing school and all the training you've been in when it comes to nutrition and health, and also working with the psychological and emotional stories that you had, as well as sharing with people. So um, I thought it was fascinating that you shared some of those stories. Can you do that now for our viewers and listeners so they can just sort of understand some of the reasons why we don't take care of ourselves when it comes to eating?
Well, I mentioned one, Michelle, in terms of people acknowledging they might not say the words, I use food to self soothe, but they know that they're numbing their emotions in some way or not wanting to deal with feelings.
Yes.
And since I'm not a psychologist, I
Mhm.
discuss that it might be an addiction
Sure.
or another physiological issue in the brain, the craving center of the brain. But then I always encourage people to talk
That's
to a
right.
mental health professional who's an expert
Hmm.
in this
Hmm.
area. And
Yes.
I also want to say, just sidebar for 1 second, since there's so much in the media now
Sure.
about weight loss drugs and the craving and addiction centers of the brain,
Mm.
back to that
Yeah.
everyone's brain and physiology are different. So I really want to
Right.
encourage your listeners to have personalized and thoughtful discussions with
Yes.
their doctors after blood tests, hormonal tests, saliva
Right.
tests to really assess their unique physiology. So,
Right. And what they
oh,
might be lacking in vitamins, nutrition, whatever,
exactly.
vitamin D, whatever.
Right. And
Yeah.
perhaps, and again, I don't want to get too far into that area, but perhaps some vitamins or nutritional
Hmm.
shifts
Sure.
might actually help improve brain chemistry and physiology. So that's a
So
good
true.
discussion with a doctor.
It
So
really is. Yeah.
other stories I've heard, people know they eat too fast, eat
Hmm.
too much.
Right.
And it's just fascinating as you know people's stories. Some say, well, that's how I grew
Right.
up.
Right.
Or
Right.
people who have been in the armed forces have said, well, we had 5 minutes or
Oh,
10 minutes to
right.
eat a meal, so we had
Right.
to eat fast.
Sure.
Back to the clean your plate club, that comes
Yeah.
up a lot.
Sure.
Being taught it's impolite to
Right.
leave food on the plate.
Hmm.
And then, of course, I love the phrase, halt, am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired?
Right.
People, when you hear their stories, do admit they're possibly lonely or isolated. This came up a lot during COVID. I know a lot
Hmm.
of my clients gained weight during COVID.
Sure.
So stress eating comes up a lot.
Hmm.
But then getting into the working with clients with their mind, body, spirit connection,
Right.
since I'm a holistic nurse and have a
Yeah.
practice in holistic modalities, people acknowledge that they are using food for nourishment, for their main nourishment. So
Right.
I work with clients one on one to not just help them shift their relationship with food and eating, but to look at what other forms of nourishment can you tweak a little.
Right.
Maybe it's sleep, drinking more
Yes.
water, family,
Right.
friends, and social support. Energy. I'm also an energy healer and clearing and
Love it.
balancing our energy systems.
Yes.
Music, the arts, hobbies, mental stimulation with courses, and understanding. I've taken some mindfulness courses and mindful self compassion that how we care for ourselves is really a reflection of our self love.
Mm. Oh boy, is that true?
So I've jumped
Yeah.
ahead, but to
No.
touch on
Right. Yeah.
the high points of where I love to, when people are ready, ultimately get to in terms of holistic self-care planning.
Yes. Yes.
You can have
Yeah.
all the plans in the world, but if people perhaps be best if they did work with a psychologist, mental
Yeah.
health expert to
Sure.
get
Sure.
underneath some of the self-care,
Right.
self-love issues, then
Yeah.
they can be supported on all
Right.
levels, mind, body, spirit,
Exactly.
emotions, and energy system.
That's beautifully said, and it's true, and it's changing those neural patterns. And you are right on, Sandy, about people being addicted. We have comfort. Part of our little brain neurons go to the comfort zone of
Right.
addiction, whether that addiction may be, but just like any other addiction, eating fills us up. It gives us that comfort, whatever it, of course, sugar. Oh, I love desserts. Sugar products are very addicting. Carbs, the best. Come on, I love to have extra cheese pizza and pasta, things like that. But I mean, I learned myself, about that through my experiences. But
Hmm.
it's just so easy because it's all about comfort and addiction and what it taking a look, like you said, at what is really bothering us. What's, the questions we need to ask. And you touch on those as well. So I love that. The eating blueprints and you know, the 7-step plan to eating mindfully. You have that 7-step plan. And maybe we could talk about that because a lot of people, just to jump right into it, are going, well, how can I do this? I want to know more. And what,
Well,
So,
I
what are
love,
some of those steps that are really
yeah,
important for people to?
I'm happy to share them, and I want to remind everyone that there are sub steps within the seven because I don't want it to
Right?
be like this. Oh,
Sure, there
seven
are.
steps and it's a panacea. So the first is
That's
really,
right. And that's why they need to read your book
yes, absolutely, that they can see all the
to
sub
get those
steps,
steps.
the sub steps.
Right.
I talk most basically about self awareness and mindfulness, and the
Mhm,
term
mhm.
mindfulness is tossed around a lot in mindful eating.
Right.
But what I
Right.
even remind myself to this day about slowing down, being grateful for the food and chewing
Mm,
it and
right.
savoring it, and
Right.
looking at the clock, is it lasting 20 minutes since it
Mm,
takes that long for the message to
right.
get from the stomach to the brain that we've had enough?
Right.
So, those are some of the sub steps in the first part.
Sure. Sure.
Discovering your food patterns, your unique food patterns, and paying attention. And I gave an example of just, neutrally without blame to any of our families or cultures. How did we grow up learning about food and what's the right amount to eat and how often? Or
Right.
maybe based on friends or colleagues now, what are our food patterns? Are we snacking all day? Are we skipping meals and just eating
Right.
dinner, which can play havoc with our
That's not good.
right blood sugar? Again, just like
Right.
being
Right.
aware of food patterns
Sure.
and really delving into this, uncovering the mystery of your eating history with what we learned as children
Mhm.
about food, the
Right.
meaning of food. Perhaps there wasn't enough, and that influenced us. For everyone, it's different. And it's most importantly, I feel it can shift and change as we get more information and tune into, as you said, our souls, not just our body's needs, but our souls' needs in
Boy.
this in real time 2024.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, I really delve into self talk, a
Yes.
field of psychology, cognitive restructuring, and I've
Mhm.
been fortunate to learn a bit about it. And I love reminding people that we're always talking to ourselves. So around food, we can use positive self talk
Right.
in even a fun way. So asking the questions, why am I eating this?
Right.
Why would I want to put food in my body right now? Am I really hungry? Am I craving fuel? Does my body need fuel? Or perhaps do I need water or
Yes.
sleep or to go outside
Yes.
for 5 minutes and
Ooh.
take a breath of fresh air and
Right.
breathe and
Oh,
oxygenate
yeah.
our brain?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
really, and then I love giving examples of self talk at whether it's restaurants or parties of,
Oh, boy. Yeah.
pausing and thoughtfully asking ourselves, okay, what would I like for nourishment now? Maybe I want to insert some fun into this, but maybe one piece of pizza is enough. I don't need three or four.
Right. Right.
Or a dessert table, tasting a few. I don't have to taste everything.
Right.
And then using self talk as we're eating
Right.
to say, chew, breathe, put my
Right.
utensils down.
Right.
Okay, take a
Right.
bite, chew, And Michelle, I learned something fascinating along the way, which I'm
What?
sure you've heard, that we're
Yeah.
influenced by the speed of the people eating around us.
Oh, it's true.
So
It's
if
like
we're
we
in a
mirror, right?
Yes, whether it's
Exactly.
our family or friends or colleagues, and they're all just rushing through food, we subconsciously can pick up the pace.
Right.
So for all of us, it really, we have to be deliberate about it. And most of the time, I'm the last one, the slowest one at the table.
Well, that's good. It's
And
healthy.
I,
Yeah.
say to myself, that's okay. And then a lot of times, by that time, I realize I'm full and I can take food home.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's self-talk can be used in so many ways, including humor.
Yes.
Uh, Gratitude.
Right.
Gratitude's part of mindful eating. Gratitude can be woven into our self-talk
Right.
and asking ourselves some thoughtful, compassionate
Yeah.
questions as we
Yeah.
head into the kitchen and start opening the refrigerator, the cupboard, just because.
Right.
And
Yes.
two, maybe we're craving some sweetness and we think it's
Mhm.
sugar,
Right.
but well, what other sweetness am I really craving?
Yes.
Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's petting an animal, maybe it's some compassionate, just intentional self care and self
Yeah.
love. And then in
Right.
the new
Right.
material, I really delve deeper into reminding people that food is fuel. And a lot of times
Yeah.
we think we're hungry, but does my body really need
Sure.
fuel right now? Think of Olympic
Hmm.
athletes or premier athletes. Their
Mm.
fuel is targeted to their
Yes.
physiology throughout the day and keeping their blood sugar steady and their energy levels high. So
Yes. Yeah.
I really guide my clients to think of it as, this is my energy system. This is my brain. This is my body. I want to keep it well fueled throughout the
Right.
day.
Right. Right.
But for my age and activity level, what's the recommended number of calories?
Right.
Approximately, not to be obsessed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's approximately 14 or 1500 calories for a woman or approximately 1800 calories for a man, depending on how much
Yeah.
exercise,
That's what they say.
re-
Yeah.
restaurant meals might be 2000 calories.
Right.
People can snack their way through 1000 calories very
Yep.
easily with
Yep.
even trail mix and nuts and good things
Right.
and fruit.
Right. You think, oh, this is really healthy. This is great. But we're
Right.
talking calories and carbs and,
Right.
which turn into
So
sugars. And
so I believe that awareness is a good thing and there can
yeah.
be awareness without it being obsession because
Right.
knowledge is
Mm.
power. Whether
Yes.
it's weighing food or reading the labels or being conscious of a healthy plate and portion sizes, that's power. So I
So true.
really encourage people to look at the timing and to ask the thoughtful questions about what else nourishes me.
Right.
And
Right.
with loving self compassion, knowing that they can reset and shift and redefine their eating blueprint for themselves.
That's beautifully said. By the way, in case you all just tuned in, here it is. Why am I eating this? This is the book. This is actually edition number 2 that you've written. Sandy Robertson, registered nurse, holds a Master of Science in Nursing, Advanced Practice in Public Health Nurse certification. She's also a certified medical intuitive and certified healing touch practitioner, which is also amazing because she is empathic in my really, just by reading this book and talking to her briefly as I have, she
Thank you.
understands what's going on a lot of times with people and also very caring. The book again, Why Am I Eating This? Is this the nourishment I need? And it's not a heavy, I have to really cut down and I have to follow this diet. It's let's take a look at you and some of your unresolved issues. What other ways can you comfort yourself that would make you feel good? What are you missing maybe in your life that makes you keep going back towards those really subconscious habits of, like you said, Sandy, of going into the pantry and getting the junk, the stuff, the chips, the nuts, the trail mix, all that stuff. They say, oh, well, the trail mix is healthy for you. Oh my gosh, look at a quarter of a cup and how many calories and carbs there's are in that. maybe switch it out for something that's yummy. But again, this is not focusing on punishment or deprivation, it's on self love and self care. So that's the part also that I really love that you bring into this book because it's also a workbook. You also you also have meditations at the end of chapters. You have a workbook so we can ask ourselves questions, write them down, and you can keep a journal of these things in this book as well as, oh my gosh, what did I do today? Or what did I do? I have to, okay, I'm going to downshift now and think about, yikes, what I was feeling and why I was cramming the food, that kind of thing. And subconsciously just self-comforting. Why? Why? I'm overworked, I'm stressed, my manager's giving me a hard time, I've been really isolated this week, that kind of thing. So it's all here in the book, and it will help you ask these questions about yourself. So we'll talk about some of those tools as well. Um, Another thing that you mentioned in your book, which I really appreciated, Sandy, was about savoring. And you talk, because you are a slower eater and you do chew slower and you are mindful of the digestion. Savoring the flavor, isn't that what it's about for us? Instead of just gulping food down and filling us up.
Well, that's really the point, Michelle. Thank you for bringing that up. That food is meant to be savored, I believe. And it's also something that might steer us towards the healthiest options. It doesn't have to be organic necessarily, but fresh fruits and vegetables.
Right,
They say eat the colors of the rainbow. And a lot of
right.
vegetables require chewing, which is a good thing because the
Yes.
first entry point of digestion is the mouth and chewing, where the food gets broken down and saliva starts, and that's necessary for good digestion to have the food broken down. So
Yes.
you can look at any way you want, but you're savoring the taste, but it's also a gift to yourself
Yeah.
to aid
Yeah.
in your digestion, starting in
Right.
your mouth.
Yeah.
And you brought up a really good point, Michelle, about some people just want to chew and swallow fast. And you
Mm,
can speak more directly
yeah.
to this, maybe why, about what people are craving
Oh,
or just what are they really hungry for. There's a great book from many
right.
years ago called The Hungry Soul.
Oh boy.
And it
Yeah.
actually goes through the evolution of eating and, the cavemen eating with their
Sure.
hands and progress and evolution of eating with utensils, but still underneath for all of us, that primal need
Yes.
to
Yes.
eat. And so sometimes I believe there's maybe something else going on of why people want to eat fast and shove food in. So mindful eating for some people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this,
Hmm.
may bring up initially feelings of, well, this isn't enough.
Hmm.
I don't feel
Right.
satisfied.
Yes.
However,
Mm.
if people one step of mindful eating, letting the meal last at least 20 minutes and fill up, especially with lots of fiber and vegetables and salad and the colors of the rainbow, that can help them feel that satiety
Hmm. Hmm.
of feeling satisfied. But perhaps you can speak a little more to that too, of how that's a trap for some people. Wow, I want more and more and more food.
Oh, I understand. And from my point of view, and thanks, that's a great question. um, from my point of view, like to explore why is it not enough? Can you, like you share and you in your meditation say, take a breath, think about it, let's talk about, I go to why is it not enough? What is enough to you? What does that mean to you? What is enough? Is my tummy full? Am I numbed out now to where I can kind of go back to my workplace or whatever that fulfillment is? That's the way I address it is, as you talk about mindful eating, what is not enough? And again, you don't have to restrict yourself. You can treat yourself to things, but I don't know, it's about portions. It's about, you know, I was working with this woman for years, and she's moved and apparently doing well. So thank goodness. But we worked for years. I haven't seen her in a really long time, but Um, it was really a tragic thing psychologically. She said, I can never eat enough. I can never get enough. And she did eat a lot of junk food, and she got to the point where she was morbidly obese. And we would go over, with her dietitian, certain plans and ideas, and she'd get really angry and all this. Well, there was a deep psychological issue that we worked with finally and got that out. So, to your point of why am I eating this? Why? Huh? We have to explore psychological things. And as it turns out, this lovely young woman had been molested when she was younger by several men in her family. And it came out that she felt that if she was very unattractive and obese, she wouldn't be attractive anymore, and she wouldn't have to deal with being molested. It was that bad. So we got her feeling safe. We uncovered all that. And that was a deep psychological reason for just, and of course, numbing down her feelings of the trauma. And we all have trauma in certain areas, whatever that might be. We all have our own traumas, but it's just, the point of numbing yourself down. But her subconscious intention was, I'm going to make myself totally unattractive so no one will rape me, basically. And that's so sad. And I didn't mean to go off on this tangent, but
Well, I'm
sort
glad
of
you did. I'm
to
glad
your
you
point
did.
of why am I eating? Yeah.
I'm really glad you did for your listeners, Michelle, because I've heard similar stories and thousands
Uh-huh.
of stories. And unfortunately, people have been in the military. Sometimes military
Right.
sexual trauma is an issue, but you don't have
Right.
to have been in the military to have been molested. And I think there are variations of that theme
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
trauma and how people have learned to use food for protection. And I can
Sure.
relate to that too, to a smaller degree, but still
Mm-hmm.
it's different
Mm-hmm.
for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And really that's part of the impetus of this book, especially the second edition too, about nourishment. Because for
Right.
everyone, self-honesty of getting underneath that, why is this amount of food that's the right amount for me physiologically is not enough? Like you said, what
Yeah.
is not enough? Or why do I feel perhaps I'm not enough? Or some
Mm-hmm.
variation. And how am I using food? And the other reason I think this is so important, back to so much in the media now about weight loss drugs and medication, and that's the answer. And maybe for some people, it is the answer, but I believe so strongly that that psychological piece of support can be
Right.
very, very valuable and
Sure.
like a fulcrum
Yeah.
of providing insights and wisdom to our soul and our nature, and then put it all together. If someone does need the medication, that's fine, but to do the behavioral, psychological, spiritual, and
Mm.
energetic work of memories and
Right.
trauma that perhaps are trapped in our energy system, which is the other reason I love energy
Right.
healing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. A couple of weeks ago, I had on a specialist who was all about the art of Ho'oponopono. You probably know what that is. And that's sort of an ancient Hawaiian self love technique um, that explores taking care of ourself, our inner self, in self love and caring for ourselves first. It's going within rather than what's out there that I can grab and shove in my face and make me feel better in here. It's what is in here that we can work on to love ourselves and take care of ourselves. And so people go, well, I don't want to be narcissistic. It's not, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's, I love, this frame. I love this 3D embodiment that I have. And what can I do to keep it well and healthy? It's not about how I look necessarily. It's what can I do to, to love myself and nourish myself, not only emotionally, but of course physically with the right stuff that you put into your mouth.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a
So,
reflection of how much we
yes.
care and love for ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's the other message, really,
Hmm.
excuse me, that I'm so excited to share in my book,
Oh, it's
to
great. I love it.
self love and self care
Right.
drives our behaviors and actions.
Mhm. Yes, it's so true. It really is. And how would you describe? You are a certified medical intuitive and healing touch practitioner. Can you tell us a little bit more about that work that you do?
Yes, I'd be happy to. As a nurse, I was fortunate through a lot of the holistic nursing trainings to have the opportunity to take healing touch, which is similar to Reiki.
Hmm.
It's overseen by a nursing organization. And so I was able to become certified ultimately in healing
Ah,
touch. And the
great.
way I describe it most basically is that we're all made up of energy and an energy system.
Yep.
And it can actually go out in front of us several feet and can move, go out and come in depending on what's going on around us, people,
Hmm.
environments.
Hmm.
So that, again, with training, that we can, putting our hands, even above the body, several inches,
Right.
tune
Right.
into and feel, and this is with someone's permission, their
Hmm.
energy system.
Hmm.
Frequently, whether it's pain or discomfort or physical upset, psychological upset is reflected in the
Hmm.
energy
Hmm.
field, even a headache.
Yeah.
So, and I've given some lectures to doctors and medical students that through the centuries in almost every culture and tradition, bringing in energy from the sun or the universe and offering it through the hands has been going on for thousands of years. So it's not a new practice
Yes.
of the combination of
Yes.
clearing someone's energy system, thinking of it as
Right.
raking or
Right.
clearing, and then
Hmm.
infusing nurturing heart-centered energy to the spots in their body that maybe you're feeling discomfort,
Hmm.
and or sometimes
Hmm.
people want it for stress management or relaxation to connect
Hmm.
the main energy centers, just inviting them to flow
Hmm.
better.
I love
People
that.
have had
Hmm.
remarkable improvements in pain reduction, improvement in sleep, clearer thinking, and an overall vibrancy, I would say. It's so
Hmm.
interesting at the end of an energy healing session. Generally, my clients feel,
Hmm.
more awake, alert, vibrant.
Right.
It's really a beautiful thing. So I
I
encourage
bet.
people to find an energy healing practitioner near them. I also do remote sessions. And I
Hmm.
also give the
Hmm.
analogy Tai Chi, yoga,
Hmm.
acupuncture. It's all about moving and clearing energy. So there
Mm.
might be something for everyone, might be drawn more to some practices more than other. Even sound
Mhm.
healing can move
Sure.
energy. So I
Sure.
think it's just beautiful to
Yes.
assist the energy system since we're all made up of energy
Boy,
and
I agree.
to
It's
nurture
so
our
true.
energy systems.
Yes. Yes. And I think it all starts here. You know, I was blessed enough to be able to interview Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he was telling me about exactly what you were talking about, Sandy, about some of the studies done in the Heart Math Institute in Palo Alto about how others can pick up our energy and how we are radiating, whatever you want to use, whatever word you want to use, how our energy can be as much as 3 meters, which is 8 to 9 feet, that other people are picking up. So when I do some of my body language translation work, or what is this person really saying with their body, I always try to suggest that it's not only reading someone's facial expressions or their bodily expressions, what they're doing. It's also about our own energy and what we're picking up from others. It's not a science necessarily. It's just, you go back to repetitions of, well, usually when people are nervous, they do this, whatever. They start speaking rapidly or waving their arms around when they're adamant or nervous, or you just have to put that into a certain type of context, whatever the situation might be, especially in forensic cases. But I find that it's really largely the amount of energy we're reading from people, we're picking up from people, and then discerning, is that our own stuff going on? And that's what I know you're an expert at. You have to sort of delineate between, is that my energy? How am I feeling today? How can I just totally clear and feel their energy? I mean, that's a lot of work and study, and I really applaud you for what you do in that work. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It is a constant reminder, as you're saying, Michelle, of if I'm feeling off and I'm in a conversation with a friend and the conversation kind of feels off, and I
Right,
think I ask
right,
myself, well, is that me? Is that her? Or the combination of both? Or
right,
with my
right,
husband. And sometimes when we're honest with ourselves, I could say, you know what? I'm feeling off today. I'm tired. I'm kind of not
right.
surprised that for whatever reason, the connections, it's fine, but it's not. We feel that when things kind of ping with
Yes,
communications with each other.
yes,
So another
right.
reason I think it's great for all of us to clear and balance our energy systems to keep them
That's true.
pristine and just clear for us.
Hmm. And there are so many ways in which we can do that. Sometimes, again, and you offer in your book meditations to just breathe and think about some of these things. Say these things to yourself. Ask yourself these questions. Allow yourself to just take a breath, take some time. And this is also, it's not necessarily about eating and nourishment. It's also, about just calming yourself and getting to a place where you're feeling really much better. I think consciousness and frequencies, which they're working on, of course, and have been. But physicists, there's a whole rush of books out now about quantum consciousness, and about the frequencies we're putting out and about how to understand where we can tap into our own connection to everything and become one with and calm ourselves, that kind of thing. So this is a whole thing now. It's been around for a very long time, but I think a lot of people are catching on to, I guess what I'm saying is their own managing their own empowerment, their own frequencies, being self-aware, and when they're feeling off, to sort of try to balance or redirect how to feel better, how to center themselves, how to um, like Dr. Joe told me, he said, treat yourself sometimes like a dog. Be quiet, sit, relax, pet yourself emotionally, take your time, and just taking time and not rushing through everything. Don't rush. Don't. Everything is fast. Everything we're reading, everything we're taking in, it comes so quickly now, and I think that's also why we're seeing a lot of people, and I know you have too, who have the generalized anxiety. The brain is always going because there's so much input out there to translate, right? And when our brains are always going 100 miles an hour, it's getting back to your book, it's so easy to not consciously think about what we're putting in our mouths to eat, right?
People are multitasking, eating while they're on their phones and or watching TV or both, perhaps all three, and talking to
Right.
people. Like you said, overstimulated. I find a lot by just the environment, the pace in our lives for many people. And
Right.
I recommend to my clients that they keep some kind of daily mind, body, spirit, energetic self care. You don't have to call it a journal or tracking,
Right.
but
Right.
just that awareness of, okay, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. How do I feel? Oh, I'm craving carbs and sugar all
Right.
morning. Oh, you know
Right.
what? I didn't get enough sleep.
Right.
And, or perhaps, especially for empaths, if someone feels overstimulated and kind of, off,
Yeah.
to
Sure.
take a moment. You talked about all the energetic information out there, books on grounding and
Mm,
earthing, which I love.
me
And I
too.
love that they talk about hugging a tree, which of
Yes.
course, had a bad connotation for some
Right.
people from the 60s. But I've actually, like reading those books, Dr. Sinatra was actually a co-author of one. And remember reading, okay, tune into the tree and, just
Yes.
it feels right for you. So there are many ways and traditions and practices
Right.
for people
Right.
to tune into what makes them happy or gives them comfort or grounding or balancing
Yes.
mind, body, spirit. energetically and to design and create their own little toolkit for them. And it could change not just daily, but hourly.
Yes. Yes.
So
So
I love that too, that
true.
it's all different and it might change several times during a day. What
Right.
feels helpful.
It's so true that you said that. And, you know, the connotation, I love that about hugging a tree. I was listening to this interview, excuse me, the other day. I think it was on Gaia TV. And this one gentleman, Emery Smith, was interviewing um, a military expert to train people in remote viewing. And he was training soldiers primarily in the military. And remote viewing, check it out if you don't know what it is, but it's being more intuitive, taking yourself and finding out, just being more psychic, putting yourself in another location mentally. They used that during World War II, I guess. They started doing that. We got it primarily, I believe, from the Soviet Union, from Russia at the time. But my point is in this interview, the expert said to the military guys who he was training, they said, "How can we do this? We were so excited about learning how to meditate and become more intuitive as soldiers and or military, whatever their expertise was." And he said, "Go hug a tree. Come back and tell me the energy you feel." I
I
thought that
love
was
that. I love that.
heavy. I went, "Wait a minute. This hardcore military guy is teaching people intuition by," and he just first thing he says is, "Go hug a tree." And these guys are looking at him like, right. but but it is. It's about everything has a frequency. Everything, plants, like the grounding theory about the earth and the Schumann frequency, and everything has energy and a frequency. And to your point, also, we have to get to balancing our own, which is such a wonderful, healthy thing to do that you share in your book. Why am I eating this? Is this the nourishment I need? It's a really terrific book. It's also got worksheets in it, so you can journal, as Sandy was saying. Also, there are meditations you can do, and very psychological, Sandy. This is what I loved also about your book. I've never read a really mindful book about being psychological and trying to figure out what's going on within you that's causing you to do this. You know, besides the eat everything on your plate, folks. What are some of the things within you that keep you in this habitual thing of just not thinking about why you're eating it? So,
Thank you for saying that, Michelle. I've
oh,
worked with a
sure.
lot of psychologists through the years, and as I said, was fortunate to take some great training on behavioral medicine and just learn from people around me. But there's a lot in the media too these days about eating intuitively and
Hmm.
intuitive eating, and I love that concept. And
Yes.
some people might not understand what that means for them necessarily, especially if they're not used to tuning in to their own bodies and being
Right.
present with their own bodies.
Right.
So, back to the theme of there's something for everyone and a doorway into even mindful eating just by the terms that we use.
Right.
So, that's why I try to give a potpourri of whether it's self talk or questions or fun or humor or terms, that there's something for everyone,
Right.
especially for perhaps people who have not done or looked at it from a deep psychological place yet. This might be a doorway into that for them to then go
Yes.
talk to an expert like you about it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. It's a beautiful book, and I thank you so much. It's about that time. We're almost wrapping up here, but I wanted to make sure that viewers and listeners to our LA Talk radio station can get in touch with you, find out more about you and your work. And I understand it's energyworkswisdom.com. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
What a
Thank
great
you.
idea for a website. Energyworkswisdom.com. Again, Sandy Robertson, amazing training and energy healer. I mean, master's in registered nursing and holistic. I mean, you have such a huge amount of training that you've done, and I thank you so much for being such a great guest on my show today.
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh,
you're great.
you're great.
I loved your questions and
Oh.
thoughtful dialogue, and that you really get what's underneath all this wisdom and fun
Well.
too. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate all you do for other people, and I don't know if I get it all, but it's a work in progress. But thank you again, and really, I'm looking forward to your next book. I know you're probably working on something else as well. So, blessings to you, my dear, and take good care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, check out the book. Why am I eating this? And is this really the nourishment I need? It's nourishment for yourself and your soul as well. Thanks for joining me. And as I always say, take care of yourself first, and then you'll be great for others. Bye-bye now.
You're listening to On the Couch with Dr. Michelle, right here on LA Talk Radio.